And on the line with us is Congressman Keith Ellison, brilliantly representing the 5th District of Minnesota. Ellison.house.gov is the website, and you can tweet him at Keith Ellison. Congressman Ellison, welcome back to the program.
Oh, it's always good to be on with you, Thom. Thanks for putting the information out there and also the historical perspective. I mean, you're very good about helping Americans see that there have been better days, there have been worse days, and that the situation we have is not fixed. So thank you for that and many other things.
You're welcome. Thanks for your kind words, Congressman. You have accused a Trump aide of fear-mongering. Tell me about that.
Well, so there is a Pakistani newspaper that reports a horrible tragedy that this guy apparently committed a heinous murder in Pakistan, a country of 170 million people, which is probably 98% a Muslim country. But this guy commits a heinous murder, and she prints that Muslim commits heinous murder. Oh, and geez. My thought is, well, within the context, the person probably would identify as Muslim given that it was from Pakistan. And so for her to tweet it is really just sort of like trying to agitate and highlight, divisions within our society.
Couldn't you probably tweet on at least 95% of all the mass murders in the United States in the last, few decades?
Right.
Christian commits mass murder. Christian shoots up school. Christian. I mean, seriously.
You certainly could do that. You absolutely could do that. We didn't tweet out what Dylan Roof's religion was when he shot 9 people at a church in South Carolina. We have, sadly, about 91 people a day are shot by guns, and we don't print their religion.
Right.
So, she's just trying to, whip up hate and hysteria. What an awful, awful way to try to win an election. Try to get people to turn on each other. It's just horrible. And, they're doing it in Minnesota. They're doing it against a friend of mine named Rick Nolan, who's running for Congress in the 8th Congressional District, which is Duluth, Iron Range. Yeah. And they're doing it, and they're doing it in the Apple Valley area of Minnesota, which is in the south of the Twin Cities, against an awesome candidate by the name of Angela Craig. Both of them are up against folks who are divisive, have no real record of achievement, or are trying to help anyone, and yet they're trying to get in office by saying, "Don't worry about my lack of credentials. Just these people are soft on terrorism, so vote for me." That's kind of what they're doing, and I'm hoping that people don't buy it, but you never know.
Yeah, Rick Nolan's been a guest on this program a number of times. In fact, in the studio, and he comes in and he's taking calls from listeners for an hour. He's a great guy.
He's an awesome guy. Let me tell you about Rick Nolan. Rick Nolan lives in a fairly conservative district, and it's sort of a kind of a 50-50 kind of district. And he still is a very proud member of the Progressive Caucus. He stands up for what's right on a regular basis. He proves that you don't have to be kind of lean right or be a centrist in order to win in a close district.
Right. What are your thoughts on the current state of the race?
Currently, I think that we are up in a difficult situation as Americans, because I think that we have had 4 decades of stagnant wages. We've seen climate effects of fossil fuels really ravage our country and the rest of the world. We need desperate change, and yet the very far-right conservatives who don't want to see the change create conditions where people are cynical about government in general. So we have a massive voter turnout problem in our nation. And what I say to people who don't want to vote because they don't believe in the system is that, the Koch brothers are really happy about that. You pretty much drank the Kool-Aid that they've been trying to sell you. Don't participate, check out, ignore the system. And in the meantime, this is exactly what these guys want. So the way I see the state of the race is that we see, I was a Bernie supporter. I'm now supporting Hillary Clinton. I see people seeing that, we have the most progressive platform that the Democratic Party has ever had. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders came together to make sure that was the case. And we have a candidate who gives us the best chance of making this platform come true in Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, she has stood by a platform that says we're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage of $15, debt-free college, comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, on the other hand, you know, she says comprehensive immigration reform. He says build a wall and no Muslims. I mean, this is not a close call.
Yeah.
Now, some friends of mine are like, okay, well, what about Gary Johnson? I'm sorry, but, you know, the guy can't name one world leader and doesn't know what Aleppo is, more or less, you know, where it is. I mean, that's kind of a problem, you know?
Yeah, plus he's a libertarian. I mean, their platform is do away with all public education, no more subsidies for college. So, you know, you only get to go, do away with the idea of mandatory or compulsory, primary school. So we're back to the 19th century. The only people who can go to college are the ones who, or even you know, kindergarten are the ones who can afford it. He wants to privatize Social Security and Medicare. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Well, what about he believes in Citizens United?
Yeah.
He supports the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah, I mean, even his own running mate, Bill Weld, has now said that from this point forward, he's only going to focus on defeating Donald Trump.
You know, so my thing about Gary Johnson is, if you're looking at Gary Johnson, would you please read about Gary Johnson? You know?
Yeah.
Before you get sold on Gary Johnson, let's figure out what Gary Johnson's actually talking about.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I have read stuff that Jill Steiner says, and I don't have anything critical, but, you know, really bad to say. I'll say she's polling less than 1%, and she's not going to be the president. She just isn't. Period.
Yeah.
And so, you know, are you there? I mean, look, I'm not one of those Democrats who have tremendous hostility toward third party. I don't. I understand the value of them. They have brought great ideas forward and have benefited society. But we are 30 days out in an election where I think a fascist candidate is on the ballot. I mean, I will say that I think we have a candidate who has attracted the positive attention of members of the Ku Klux Klan and the neo-Nazis. And this is not an exaggeration. Look it up. If you don't believe me, this is not – we're not dealing with Bob Dole here. We're not even dealing with George W. Bush here. We're dealing with something far uglier. I mean, he has inspired – and I'm talking about Trump now – he has inspired the likes of David Duke to run for U.S. Senate. Yep. So anybody thinking like this is sort of like a normal year and I'm just going to go another direction, I really urge people not to look at it that way. And I will tell you this about Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton did shepherd the state children's health insurance program, which helped 8 million kids get health care. She and I carried a bill to help protect kids from lead exposure who live in public housing. I mean, she stands for comprehensive immigration reform, increasing the minimum wage to a livable wage. She has spoken and criticized the Trans-Pacific Partnership, specifically stuff on this investor state stuff and making these patents go longer and longer to keep drugs prices higher. She has done those things. So let's get serious about what's going on here. So the Black Lives Matter kids bring forth a compelling, critically important issue about racial justice. They go to her rally and they, you know, do what protesters do. They get attention. She says, okay, let's sit down and talk. And she has a meeting with them and incorporates their ideas into her platform and her work. On the other hand, Donald Trump threatens that if they show up, there's going to be violence. And in fact, there was violence against people who protested at his rally. Yeah. He literally encouraged them and says, punch him in the face. He says, we used to take him out in a stretcher. So, I mean, I'm trying to just tell folks, we got to get active here, and we got to understand the election is not the end of something. The election is the beginning of something, and that is when the real activists out there, the real fighters for justice, are going to really accelerate their work and really help hold Hillary Clinton and all of us accountable for this platform. Yeah. There's never been a politician elected in the history of America who did not need progressives to stand up and fight for the platform that they stood for.
Well, but there's a second step here, Congressman. Pardon my interrupting you, but we only have about a minute left.
I was kind of on a roll there.
Yeah, no, you really were. But I want to talk about down ticket races. One of my big concerns is that the Clinton campaign seems to be singularly focused on Donald Trump, and you've got Republicans in the Senate who should be losing, but because of $800 million in Koch network money and I think the fact that we're all kind of taking our eye off that ball, Hillary Clinton might end up president with a Republican House and Senate, which is a prescription for disaster. We've got to be attending to these down ballot races. How do we do that?
Well, we got to focus our attention and understand that politics is a team endeavor, starting with the activists. And everybody works for the activists, right? Everybody works for the citizen. So I tell you, my state right next door to Wisconsin, we're pulling for Russ Feingold, tremendous champion and leader. Yep. But in like North Carolina, Deborah Ross is in a pitched battle. Yeah. She's former ACLU. She believes in civil rights. They're trying to make her pay for that. Those people who believe in civil rights ought to step up and vote. Chuck Grassley doesn't deserve to be in the United States Senate. I mean, he needs to be taken out by Ms. Judge there. Yeah. And I tell you, there are a lot of great candidates. I just mentioned a moment ago that we got two big important races here in Minnesota, but there are important races all over this country, not to mention state legislative races that are so critically important. Well, Thom, I'm sure you know this, but maybe some folks listening may not know, we have lost 910 state legislative races since 2008.
Yeah, and this is largely the result of billionaire money. Congressman, we're out of time, but thank you so much for the great work you're doing. And thanks for being on our program. Great talking with you. Congressman Keith Ellison.